Well, good evening, everyone, and it is wonderful to have you with us. Some great guests coming on to discuss a very strategic activity and how that is contributing to how we're going to change, or we are changing the state of water in the world. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in to the usual. And if you just want to make sure that you're in the right webinar, water is new gold. And of course, water is a new asset class. We're making it that way. We are the leader in that respect for water installations that are not these huge central ones that we know are in trouble. It is Thursday, the 22nd of July. Oh my gosh. Labor Day fast arriving. And by the way, we are, there's been discussion about our quarterly filing that remains on track now. More importantly, the second quarter filing, which I think will have some very good news in it, is on schedule for the third week of August. And so I think August, we'll get past this July one. Prasad's work to make our processes work better will have paid off, and we will be in a whole new scene. Okay, briefing number 120. Of course, as you know, puedes escuchar en español, so all you got to do is click on the globe on the bottom of the dialogue, choose Spanish, and you're off and running. Of course, the usual safe harbor statement about how there are uncertainties and risks, but we do our very best to tell you like it is. I'm going to start off by playing a quick video, and I'm very happy to see how many people are here. That's wonderful news. Welcome. Bienvenido a la gente, toda la gente de América Latina, y están los bienvenidos. And I hope that Heather is translating it properly for me. Anyway, let me go ahead and share screen with the video optimization. And here we go.
Ivan Anz is an Inc. 500 serial entrepreneur who has enjoyed not 1, but 2 years in the Inc. 500, now listed as 83rd of the fastest growing companies in the Inc. 500, and headed for a 3rd year. He's the founder and CEO of Capitan's family office, which comprise 3 strong divisions: business development, investments, and philanthropy. The business division is directed by the CEO and business strategist, Mr. Arte Maren, with more than 50 years of experience ensuring Ivan's vision becomes a reality for the world. Their mission is developing and maturing businesses that have the potential to prosper, and with all the important factors of enhancing the condition of humanity. His Toyota dealerships rank as the #1 car dealership network in his state in Argentina, and expands Realty, the international real estate brokerage firm of the family office, is ensuring agents grow above and beyond financially and in their lives. Well known as the creator of the PhilanthroInvestor brand identity, along with his books, Ivan is constantly seeking to engage others towards the improvement of the world's most major social maladies. Housing problems, successfully addressed using housing philanthroinvesting by Equity and Help Inc., and now with its new startup, Equity and Help Ventures, opening the doors to the institutional investor to enjoy what individual investors have been experiencing for the past 7 years. Serious water conditions and scarcity are being addressed by water philanthroinvesting with OriginClear, the water company for the new economy, and targeted to arrive in NASDAQ in 2022. Philanthroinvestor, golfer, and music lover, and having never met a person he did not love, Mr. Ivan Anz.
Well, and with that said, I would like to welcome Arte Maren and Ivan Anz. Welcome aboard, gentlemen.
Thank you, Riggs.
And Ivan, you're in Puerto Rico, and Arte, you're just down the street in Clearwater, Florida.
Correct.
I like your tie.
Thank you.
Yeah. You got to have a good tie. You know, if you these days ties are so unusual that, you know, you got to have a good tie, right? Anyway, so what I'm going to do here, first of all, before we get into you guys individually, I want to talk a little bit about what this means to us, the relationship, et cetera. And I sure am blue. I think I look very blue today, but I'll go with it. I'm going with blue. But the thing that happened last year around May was that our business model was, you know, through incredibly hard work by Ken Berenger, myself, Tom Marchicello, we were moving towards this water as a service and the investor water model and so forth. And by May, we really had made this major transformation so that when Ivan who's attracted to an ad of ours, ended up in a CEO briefing, we were the company he was looking for to apply the same successful sort of principles that he had applied for equity and help. And he goes to Arte, he goes, there's this guy, Riggs. And of course, Arte says, yeah, I know this guy. I know this guy. So it's from that point on. Now, here's what's important about this. Very, very strategic. And the reason why it's more than, you know, three guys in a room here. And that is that as a CEO of a public company, I can't say anything that I'm not actually doing, because otherwise I'd probably have to move out of the country. So in this case, we knew that we needed to move towards this pre-funding of water systems and so that companies would be paying on the meter by the gallon. But the reality of it was we didn't have that capability. And that's really what PhilanthroInvestors brought to us, because they leveraged their existing real estate audience who are, you know, accustomed to large investments and so forth. And with that, we've been able to make our way towards raising capital for these water systems as opposed to merely selling them. Now, the irony of it is that now, a year after that, the selling of systems has taken off, which is good news. But we feel that it's very strategic what we're doing here, this water on demand. And I have to say that PhilanthroInvestors is key to having been able to say that legitimately. So without further ado, I am going to share screen here once again. And Ivan, you are the first guy who got to know us. And this is your little one sheet for your podcasting. Tell us a little bit about how you got here, what you learned about real estate, and how it's applying to what you're doing now.
Yes, of course. So, Rick, everything started with the dream, because I was observing that I was just investing money for money. And I was already well financially, but I was feeling that the money that I was making, it was going toward just being a number behind of a screen and watching a number and a graph grow or go down or go up and go down. So when I start to see the speculative investment world and start to feel my emptiness inside, I realized I need to find a way to, not only for myself, but for others, to invest with a purpose. And one day I was in the shower, and then this concept came to me about PhilanthroInvesting, and it was kind of a revelation. And this revelation showed me that there is a trend coming in the world, as you see the nonprofits trend from many, many years, that 50 years ago were very little amount of nonprofits. Mm-hmm. And now there is more and more and more. So there is a trend in the world of the consciousness level of help for the humanity raising. So that was one trend. But then I see this in the future where investors were going to care more about their money, and they were going to care more about what they do with the resources. And it was not going to be only what the money creates for them and what if I can buy more watches or more cars or more homes or better suits and so on. It was going to be more in the direction of what the effect the money is creating in the world, where the money is going, and what is the result that this money is creating. And that was the whole revelation around 2009. So I started this movement of housing philanthropy investing down in Argentina. And when I start seeing the families change their life, it touched my heart. So then my wife tells me, Ivan, if we move this to the United States, everything that happens in the US, the world will copy. The good and the bad, right, Rix?
Sure, absolutely.
Exactly. So I came to the US and I started investigating more and more. And I realized, I thought that the US was the country of the American dream and that everybody can own their home. 100% of the people own their home in the US. And when I realized that more than 50% of Americans do not own their home, I was blown away.
Yeah, it's a terrible piece of history because it used to be 75% back in the 50s. And then it over time, it degraded. And it's funny because we keep talking about charity in places like Africa, but we really need to take care of America.
Exactly. And that's what I saw. Hey, this is the country that is been working for years to be the example for the world. And this is the country where almost everybody in the world wants to live in and wants to invest in and wants to support. And I say, wait, but 50% of Americans do not own their home. So I researched more and more. I went through different real estate seminars and so on. And then that's why I launched Equity and Help, because I wanted to solve that problem and connect philanthropy investors with the problem of housing. So I will say that my inspirations in my journey towards a philanthropy investor journey, my number one inspiration was when I first helped families in Argentina. My second inspiration was when I realized that I can help families in the US. And then I say, well, I arrived to the US in 2012, and I do not speak a word in English almost. I was like learning as I speak.
Yep, like every immigrant.
Exactly. Then I say, well, I am a visionary, so I need to build a team that speak English and understand the US law, right? So with that in place, I built a team that now is led by Mr. Jaime Gomez, amazingly well done as a CEO for Equity and Health. And in 2019, after the company made it to the Inc. 500 for first time, in position 128 and now number 83 in the year in the 2020, then I had the third inspiration for the philanthropy investor journey was this revelation that I had, which was, wait a minute, philanthropy investor is not only created to solve one issue of the planet, which is housing and starting in the US, but I discovered that 8% of the population is living in places with bad air quality. With good air quality. Only 8% of the population is living. Oh my God. Yes, 8%. And then I went beyond and I discovered 6,000 kids are dying every single day of water-related diseases.
Yeah.
And we will be, it's not the problem, and I start researching more, and it's not the problem with the amount of water that we have in the planet, because it comes from the rain and so on. The problem is the quality of the water.
And we are being terrible, terrible stewards of that water.
Yes.
You know, our responsibility is very, very low. So what I understand is that you took the successful Equity and Help concept and now you are replicating it in these other domains.
Yes. And then I went through the different areas and I say, wait a minute, water is the most important one that I want to tackle next. So philanthropy investors helping the water increase the quality in the world. And I came to you through your ad in Facebook, like I think, these machines that we have in our hands that I feel that they are listening to us. So I was talking about water and all the time, right? And then your ad comes to my cell phone on water because I was talking
Facebook
about
works for me.
Yes, exactly.
Facebook works for me, just so you know.
Exactly. and I like it because he understands what I want, so he give it to me,
Exactly.
The cell phone.
That's funny.
So then I go through that and I say, well, the success of the expansion on taking the world to a more positive direction.
Yes.
And allowing people that is not knowing what to do with their money, so they gamble, to have a space for them to not only get cash flow, but fulfilling cash flow, is the place that we started to create more and more. And the expansion that Philanthro investors have had over the years, it came from a single very important person in our universe of the companies, which is called the Philanthro Investor Ambassador. So we have this team on 16 countries of the world that are people that understand our vision and mission, and they get brief on it. And they may have the money and they philanthro invest in one of the companies, or they may not. So they philanthro invest with their time. Because what is a philanthro investor? Is someone that invests their money or time, engaging emotionally to promote human welfare while earning a financial return. So the ambassador gets a reward for his time that is developed toward the improvement of the area that philanthro investor is touching. And that's what we've been doing with equity and health. That's how we expanded housing philanthro investing. And now we are bringing this water philanthro investing product to allow anybody in the world across the globe to just say, hey, I want to help the world with my time. Okay, I'm becoming a philanthro investor ambassador. And I am getting reward, but plus fulfilling that indirectly, I am changing the planet to a more positive direction.
Well, in fact, we're going to be able to talk about this further because although Vendy Rios is not able to be here tonight, we will be covering her job, which is to work with that. I'm going to take this opportunity now and thank you very much, Ivan. And I'm so proud and happy that you clicked on that ad. Here is Mr. Arte Maren, who tell us a little bit how you got dragged into this, because apparently you didn't say yes right away.
No. As far as becoming the CEO, no. I'd been lecturing around the world on various aspects of management, Europe about 4 months a year or more. And Ivan found out about my work, and he called me and he said, well, you should really, Ivan, I'm busy. And finally one day he said, because he is, as you know, Riggs, fairly persistent. And he said, look, why don't you come up and let's have dinner. You can meet my wife. And I thought, okay, fine. So I went over. He was living in Clearwater.
Famous last words.
Yeah. And I suddenly got the real picture. It wasn't just real estate. It was help. And it was effective. And that really got my interest. And even then, he said, well, chairman of the board. And I said, let me just consult a little bit. Just let me, and that's how we started. And then it kind of kept growing and growing, and we really connected up a lot more. And I'm going to tell you why. There's a few key points that Ivan brought up there. One, he said, well, I came to America and I didn't speak English. The power of what he was doing was powered by purpose. Imagine coming to America, not a word of English. You got to make a living. You got a family, right? And that was driven by this purpose. And the purpose was a carryover from what he did in Argentina. And I tell you, the moment he helped he was selling this real estate, and this person could not afford to buy it. Ivan, I can't afford it. He had his little girl with him. She said, Daddy, we could live here. No, I'm sorry. And, she got this frown. And Ivan thought, no, okay. I'm going to give you the land. We're going to build a house on it. You're going to have it. You'll pay me, practically whatever you could afford. And at that moment, the smile on that person's face is what lit up and created millions and millions of dollars in housing investment with equity and help and all of our philanthro investor companies. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. Secondly, he made a comment. He said, fulfilling cash flow. When have you ever heard of that? It's fulfilling cash flow. And Ivan often says, I don't want money for money. And what he's saying there, and it's actually pretty good English, is that it's just not fulfilling. But if you can put money in and make it be a fulfilling activity, that means something in this short amount of time that we have on planet Earth. Okay, so that's enough of that. I'm involved in the mechanics. My purpose in my job is to bring these concepts. I mean, helping people is a concept, but making them a reality. And I'll never forget the moment that Ivan said, I found the water, because we had been looking for it. He said, water is our next one. We got to have water. Okay. I don't know how long, 5 days, 7 days. I found the water. Really? What is it? So it's a company called OriginClear. Now, I wasn't familiar with the name. There's a company called OriginClear, and they're doing these great things, and they kind of think like us. I said, really? Who's the CEO? Figuring, I don't know, maybe from my travels around the world, I know him. And he said, Riggs Eckelberry. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Riggs Eckelberry at one time was a relation of mine. His brother was married to my daughter. I don't know what that is. Somebody can tell me. Is that like a nephew-in-law?
I think we're cousins.
Right. All right. So we're cousins. And I said, Ivan, I've known this guy for 25 years. His mother was a friend of mine. We went to party. We went to, every Sunday I was at his house. Remember the Sundays?
Sure, the brunches.
Sunday things in California.
Sure. Yeah.
So it was great. And of course, you know how things are, ladies and gentlemen. When it's kind of right, it's like really right. And our first meeting, it just took off from there. But let me go into OC just a little bit more. What was it that attracted our attention? What was it that got us really more steeply involved and kind of like all in? And as you know, we're investors. Ivan's an investor. The indicators. And what do I mean by indicators? When you've been working with companies, as I have for half a century, you see certain things because you've had so many experiences that you create a library. Okay? These are all the things to look for. And I one of them was not just the sales, not just the money, but also the intensity of help, the intensity of final product. Our first meetings with Riggs, he didn't talk about, the return and the thing. No, he talked about water. And he talked about the necessity for doing something about water in this planet, backed up by statistics, much of which I had no clue. That became a desire on our part to do what we could do. And because our investors are PhilanthroInvestors, we knew that once we brought them water on demand, water as the new gold, the fact that they could help, it was going to be instant recognition. And it was. So it was the technical rendition, and by that I mean the work they had been doing on water on demand, the level of sophistication, the drive. We've met now, I don't know, probably most of the crew, and the drive for it, and Ken Berenger, right? Whom, if you haven't met, it's worth on its own, never mind the investment returns you might well get. But Ken is incredibly knowledgeable. He's been in the industry decades. And I guess it's the trust. That's what permeated all of our connections, was just this constant evidence of trust. And the fact that we could trust that when we brought the people we knew to be introduced to Ken and to Riggs, that they were going to get the whole story. And they will tell you, incredibly transparent. This is the way it is up front. Here's all the problems. Here's this, here's that. And so that was a very big factor. And now, as Ivan mentioned, ambassadorships. And that's all about replication. If you know enough about business, you know that when something works, you replicate it. And since everything we've been doing is working very well, we're not going to change water on this planet fast enough unless we scale up.
Yeah.
It's not just whom Ivan and I know, but no. It's got to scale up. Well, who's going to do that? The people who know the value of what we're doing, and that means our investors and people who get it. And this is in the main people who have been investing or are investors, but do not have fulfilling work. And yes, investing in OC is fulfilling in itself because you know that your money is going to something of value for now and the future. But it also puts you in a position to be an ambassador. To what? Get the word out to other people as to what's happening and what we're doing. And we count, who better than those who understand what we're doing to help get the word out to others. And we have a system, call it a replication system, that allows where we can do that. And that's kind of what we're doing. If you pull up the next slide, I want to introduce everybody to Vendy.
Absolutely. And I think that Vendy was not able to be here tonight, but
her child is, I spoke to her about an hour ago, and her child is ill, and it's untenable to be on. But here's Vendy, who's originally from the Czech Republic, wonderful lady, very, very smart. And she is the vice president of expansion, actually internationally. And part of what she does is introduce both likely investors and, very importantly, ambassadorship. That is to say, somebody who's sincerely interested in helping us get the word out. And we have a program that allows them to do that. And it in itself is fulfilling. So there are investors who can't do the investment right now for whatever reason. Okay, but they love what we're doing. Fair enough. Let's talk about ambassadorship. Let's explain to you how it works and so on. But we're not talking about getting on the phone and doing cold calling, okay? We're not talking about putting ads in newspapers, right? It's just that here's the point. Everybody knows somebody who should be playing this game. And that's all we're talking about, right? So those who are interested, you can certainly contact us or contact Vendy, and we can set that up for you in one way or another.
Wow. Well, that was amazing. And I appreciate you jumping in to the ambassador thing, because you're right. One company, one group cannot change everything. You have to create a movement in a way. And I think that's what you're talking about. While you've been talking, Michael Hardison said, trust the intangible asset of OriginClear. Amazing. And then Keith Rutan, this is why we invested. So I think you have become you've hit a nerve here, because our investors, I believe, and Keith did not come through PhilanthroInvestors, but this is where I think there was an immediate harmonization between the two organizations that, Ivan and us kind of sensed each other. And, Sharon Skonetsky says great info. So this is, to me, we will not have 5 or 10 partners like PhilanthroInvestors. It's not going to happen, because, you're really organically part of what we do. And we've sort of, through osmosis and through technology transfer, we've adopted so much of what you've got. And then, of course, we're pioneering things like crypto, which I think that you guys should adopt, but that's a whole other story. But Vendy is extremely diligent. She's got great tender loving care, TLC. So if anybody's interested in getting involved with PhilanthroInvesting, and that doesn't just include water, it also could include doing things for equity and help, then simply email Vendy at expansion@philanthroinvestors.com. So this has been a really good really good moment to talk. And, Ivan, to your point earlier, we know that in the world, charity has gotten a bad name. Why? Because it can actually make, reduce you feel great. You gave a lot of money and, I've done good things for the world. The recipient is often not benefited by that. And, we have these examples, for example, in the Ivory Coast, and a 40-foot container of clothes shows up in Abidjan, and all of a sudden the local garment industry is dead. And so that is very bad. So PhilanthroInvesting doesn't mean just wealthy people creating this, but it also means being able to create entrepreneurial movements everywhere where we're doing good and at the same time doing well. So I think that's going to become something that over time, charity itself will become PhilanthroInvesting, I think. So
yes, and Rich, you're totally right in what you're saying, and brings me to the point that I will use as a closing for you, which is that when you have these millionaires or billionaires that come to the level that they can do charity, but then you have the guy that has $100,000 in savings or 200,000, and then if he gives a huge amount to charity at the level that he wants, then he cannot do that level that the philanthropist does. So philanthropy is just putting your money towards or time towards improvement of humanity, but just getting in return that you are improving the humanity. Philanthropy investing on the other side is putting your money to getting a return. So if you combine both of them,
yes,
just combining both of them, that's the power of the creation of PhilanthroInvesting, and allows everybody. And the vision for PhilanthroInvestors, Rick, is everybody in the world we will have an app in the future. You will come to the app, PhilanthroInvestors, and you will select OriginClear, and you will be able to do 5,000, 1,000. Like, we will have this open to the world in the future. And that's the vision. But let me tell you something else, which is the fact that when you are a PhilanthroInvestor, you are connected to something very special, which is true financial freedom. And what I mean by that, we have this word that has been promoted all over the world, this phrase, financial freedom and passive income, financial freedom and passive income. And both of them are connected. From my viewpoint, it's not correct, because the word freedom is more connected with purpose. Like when you say, hey, let's get this freedom for this country, everybody has a purpose, everybody is alert of their environment, everybody has engagement, everybody receives a fulfilling coming back. So that's true financial freedom, not the other way of, hey, I give you the money and I do nothing and I just receive money, because there is no involvement, there is no life, it's just receiving money. So what I love about the OriginClear platform is that we have the Trusted Investor Conference. Why we have that? Because once a quarter, very well laid out, aligned with the PhilanthroInvestor vision, you put all the investors that are supporters of OriginClear to meet once a quarter, and they are able to also give you input and control the direction of the company somehow. So they feel they are creating the future of OriginClear. So it's not just their money, and that's a Water PhilanthroInvestor.
Ivan, could you repeat the definition of the PhilanthroInvestor again? Because I'm not sure that very crucial point really got across, and I want to emphasize it. Could you repeat it again? And I'm going to make comment on it.
Yes, a PhilanthroInvestor is someone who has spent his time and money engaging emotionally, while earning a financial return.
Okay, and it's the engaging emotionally that I wanted to put in there, because the fulfillment comes from that, not just from the money, but the constant upgrade of your information. You know where it's going, and you hear about the utilization. I mentioned earlier that when we started, it was all about what we kept seeing as results, and that's the intangible results, the trust, as well as the real results. And it's just very fulfilling. But anyway, I wanted to make sure, because I thought that part, when I first read it, that they're emotionally engaged. That's where the return on investment really lies.
Wow. And Chris Worth says, very good. Now understanding PhilanthroInvesting, can't wait to circulate this OriginClear CEO meeting. So you've definitely hit a chord. Thank you very much. And I'm not going to, because we've already spent almost 40 minutes and has not been one boring minute. So thank you very, very much for this.
Awesome.
I'm going to go ahead and give the group an update on what's happening on the crypto front. And thank you, Ivan and Arte. You guys are great. And I would thank Vendy if she'd been here. It's been really fantastic.
Thanks.
All right, let me talk a little bit about the crypto situation. This is evolving very, very fast. Let me just check. Somebody made a chat. And what we've got here, let me go into speaker view because somehow I still have, there we go. So what we have here is crypto works well when it is a functionality, a complete functionality. And what we're starting to figure out is we need two coins. One is this network of a community of people who are interested in helping with water and who want to direct projects and vote, et cetera. And the other one is, well, where does the money come from? And so then on the other side, you have investors and they get another network, and those two interact. In the middle, you have to have a trustee, right? A trustee function. So what's evolving is like a binary system, kind of like the two, binary stars, two stars that circle around each other. But in the middle, you have this very, very important fulcrum. Now, $H2O is the security token that we've been talking about, and it's pure money. It's only for accredited investors, and it is when people invest, they get a percentage back over the life of the equipment, as we've been talking about. And that's going to be fleshed out. Next week, I promise you a very, very clear and well put diagramming of all this as it develops. We're still going back and forth with our partners. And on the other side is this community network that basically recruits everyone. Now, there's a big problem with democracy. Too many people, right? When you have like a mob, then in a way, nobody's speaking. You have to have what we have in America, which is a representative democracy. The people elect the people that represent them, and then those people in turn have the responsibility of deciding things and voting, et cetera. And that's called it was designed by Dan Larimer. It worked very well for a coin called EOS, another one called Steemit, another one called BitShares. And what you have with all those cryptos is you have people who are called witnesses or delegates, and these people make sure that everything works properly. So it's not entirely just crypto smart contracts, it's also people. And that, I think, is going to be the key thing to make all this work. So to summarize, and I'm going to come back tomorrow with, be there tomorrow, not next week, be there next Thursday, because you will see this visually as I develop it. And we're going to have this network that grows, what's called a utility token. That is, it's not a security, anybody can own it. And it's because the minute it's a security, then it has to be treated like a stock, and there's all kinds of rules. And usually it's only the accredited investors. So this one here is, and we just trademarked it, but I won't discuss it just now today. I'll keep that for next week. And this particular community token has this hierarchy of elected representatives who then take, oh, there's a problem in Abidjan. How do we solve it? Fine. Now there's funds over here on the H2O coin, which where people make money, and the two interact very dynamically. And in the middle, as I said, we have this trustee function. That's as much as I can get into today. It's very, very promising. I'm super excited about it because it's starting to click. And you know that when something starts to become simpler, it means it's becoming better. And that's what's happening here. So without further ado, I'm going to be wrapping it up. And I appreciate, oh my God, so many people have been extremely loyal. And JRW says, thank you for the info. Very good. Thank you for the info. And there's two ways you can participate in our future. One is with what we call the Series U, which is 100,000 investment, but you can do less if you're accredited or non-US. And by the way, we learned this week that a non-US investor can invest US funds as long as they are a non-US investor, meaning living abroad. And this very, very high leverage. You would not believe some of the numbers this thing generates if we do even just keep going. It's amazing. But if we, as I expect, if we really take off and end up on the NASDAQ, the returns are stupendous. And then the other one is this idea of the Water on Demand program, which is about funding equipment. And this is going to coexist with the new token thing. They're not going to wipe each other out. Why? Because it's going to take a little while for the crypto to happen, weeks or months, so we don't want to say when. But meanwhile, this thing is going to get us going, and we've already closed some deals on it, and we'll be receiving our first funds very, very shortly. And that'll be a piece of news that you'll be getting. So continuing here, Ken Berenger, he really is the guy who as Artie said, he's got this ability to brainstorm very, very fast. And so we're able to just ping pong things back and forth, and it's been incredibly productive. And we've changed the company dramatically during COVID. It's really when it started happening. So that's what we need to do. And finally, of course, we're going to see you next week because we are going to have coverage of this crypto thing. Sonia, gracias, hijo, por seguir y luchar por tus sueños para un mundo mejor. Gracias a todos. Y gracias igualmente, señora Anzulovich, y gracias por su fiel. Y para también gracias por Ivan. Entonces, thank you so much. I appreciate everything and all the people who visited. And Esteban Davis, thank you, Riggs. Adios. Guys, next week is going to be huge. Be there, pass the word. It's going to be amazing. You will see the vision, simple vision, totally complementing what we're doing already. Remember, it's stacked, right? The base layer is all of this hardware we're selling successfully. And as you know, the numbers are taking off. You'll hear more about that. And the next level is this water on demand, where it's outsourced water treatment. And then this final level is this thing we're working with crypto. They all interact. We're not going to make one thing the red-haired stepchild. And I hope that translates okay, Heather. But the red-haired stepchild, meaning the person who is neglected. We're not going to neglect anything because they work together very synergistically. And then combined with the PhilanthroInvestor Ambassador Program, which gets the word out through a human network, I think we're going to have an amazing 3, 4, 5 years. And I believe they'll be historic. I think we're going to change the water industry in ways that only just now becoming apparent. So thank you, everyone. It's been great having you again. Just the best. Let's talk soon. I'll see you next week, okay?
Good night, everybody.